What's going on, guys? Today's video we're going to be working on this Seadoo XP Limited with the 951cc two-stroke Rotax engine. I filmed a bunch of stuff for you guys, and lo and behold, my GoPro decided to not work, so I don't have the footage leading up to what you see right here. What I can tell you is what happened. We took it out, we took it for a test drive. I'll link that video above here. It was kind of cutting in and out, and the stock fuel filter, the one that looks like this, which is located right here, and you can still see it, it kept accumulating a lot of junk in it. Not only that, but it was like barely attached, and there was junk on both sides. And after I just finished cleaning the carburetors and getting everything running good, I figured junk must have got into the carburetors, so I took apart the carburetors, re-cleaned them all, put them all back together, and actually one of the pop-off pressures was off for some weird reason. I had checked them before, but I rechecked it and one of them was off, so got that back into spec and got that working good. And what I found was there was a ton of sediment in the bottom of the tank. So that's why the seat's off, because there is access to the fuel pickup here. And I filmed it for you guys, but my fuel level sensor on this thing never worked. And it ended up being the F1 fuse, and I ended up fixing it. So there's a stupid fuse in here for some reason, which is notorious for going. So, and you just cut a little square in there and you solder it, and it ends up fixing it. So I ended up doing that and it fixed it. So now I have a working fuel sending unit, so I can see exactly what my fuel level is, which is obviously very helpful. And what I did in the process, I guess a few other things. I ended up picking up these. So I got a brand new fuel filter for the factory fuel filter location. I also picked up one of these Fram fuel filters, so I'm going to run this as well. So this is a larger hose size. Since it's a 951, everything is a 5/16, not quarter-inch. So I got one of these as well, so I'm going to run both just in case, just for a final line of defense. So it's going to have that fuel filter, it's going to have one of these kind of throwaway ones just in case anything gets past that. And we also found that the fuel selector was completely closed off. Like, check out how crazy that is, you guys. So this thing was just completely gummed up and closed. So I ended up picking up a new one of those, ordered that, and we're gonna put that in here. So you see here, we've got a brand new one, and again, this is all 5/16 stuff, and we'll put on the new knob and everything, so we'll be able to use that as intended. And I also purchased new fuel line. So this stuff is like rock hard at this point, and you can see after I saw this where they completely blocked off and what connected to it was all like crusty inside, I just figured there's going to be a ton of sediment that was going to continue to clog up our fuel system. So I ended up picking up fuel line. So I got two different sizes, because there is still two different sizes on this. I got some quarter-inch stuff, and then I got a huge roll of 5/16. So I'm going to rerun all the fuel line stuff on this thing, just so we got new fuel lines, new fuel filters, and we can put this back together and then finally go out and enjoy it. So let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead by starting to install some of this stuff, and I'm pretty much just gonna measure whatever old fuel line, like this, you can see it's the 5/16 stuff, and I'll just measure it out, cut a new piece of it, and this thing is like a rock, and then I'll just replace it with brand new stuff. And you might be wondering how I know where all these hoses go, because I did this like a month ago, probably maybe more now. But what I did before I started removing stuff, you can see here 444, and then over here it says bottom. So what I did was, where it connected to here, you can see I wrote the number 4 where I've removed it from, or in corresponding numbers, and then bottom meaning where this went onto here. So where this fuel valve went here, it went to the bottom one here. And so you can see there, that's the inlet, and then the out is going to go over to our fuel system. So that's how I know where goes where. And I'm just going to continue to follow that. So every hose that I removed, because obviously they're all removed, I went ahead and numbered them, so you can see 2 and top. So however you guys want to map this stuff out, but it's just a matter of removing it, knowing where it goes, cutting the new hose to length, and then putting it back in there. Look, it's an octopus! So I got our fuel selector on here. I got all of our different lines cut to length. So pretty much the two side ones are your intake. So they're both inlets, one's reserve, one's just regular on. And then this long one is your output, and this leads over to this fuel filter section. And like I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this going straight to the fuel filter, go through this fuel filter since this is a serviceable one, and then afterwards, as a first or last line of defense, is going to be that Fram one before it leads into the carburetors. So let me get this in here. I'm going to put on the fuel selector, put the knob on, get this all in here, get these hoses connected, and we'll move on. Okay, so it is a big mess around here, but I will be cleaning this up in just a minute. So all of our hoses are connected to here. I plugged in our fuel sending unit for our level. Ended up dressing all this stuff in. I replaced, there's one vent hose. So one of these is a vent. You have your on, your reserve, your return. So there's a fuel return that comes back from the carbs, from the pump. And also the last one's a vent. So the vent goes over to here. So this is a vent, and then it also goes across and out the side here with this little check valve thing. And that I replaced as well. So I got rid of all the gray hose because this stuff is just hard as a rock. And she's pretty much ready to go. Only thing I need to do now, and don't mind the mess, is put on that filter. So here it is, and this is a really common problem, is this gasket gets flattened and then it loses seal and therefore loses prime. So nice thing about these, and I'll link these down in the description below, is it comes with a brand new O-ring. So this is a pack of 3, I believe. So I'm gonna go ahead, throw the new O-ring on here, put the filter on there, and install that. Also, you may or may not notice, it's kind of dark in here, but my fuel filter is here. So after this serviceable filter, I have the inline filter to catch anything that perhaps this misses. This gives us a chance to have the serviceable filter catch any junk, and then we can clean it out before it hits our non-serviceable filter. So that was kind of the rationale behind that. And carbs back on, connected. If you guys are interested in that, let me know down below what stuff you guys want to see in depth on these things. There's just so much to do on these, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last of this. So not as far as this one here, but I'm always tinkering with stuff. So, you know, if you guys want to see how to rebuild carbs, I'm sure I'm going to get another one of these machines that's not running at some point, because it's kind of fun messing with these things. They're a big puzzle. Anyways, let me get this on here, and then we can finally see if this thing works. So I've got the new gasket in there. New little filter is on there. So we'll put this up here, and then I can screw this on. So we have it outside. I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. Preferably, it would be nice to pull a vacuum on our feed line just to get the fuel going rather than cranking it. But it's kind of a pain in the butt on this thing to actually get to the fuel line before and after. So we're gonna have to crank it. And then once it actually initially fires, then I'll go ahead and hook the hose up to it. But let's go ahead and start the cranking process, because the lines are dry, so it's going to take a bit before we get fuel in it, and it is what it is. If you are going to do this, though, give your starter a break. Don't sit there and just hold it for like 2 minutes straight or something silly like that. I'm going to do it, you know, let it rest for a bit. Let's start to cool off and continue until it finally does pull fuel. Okay, so it is starting to pull fuel through our filter, because I can see in the back there through our non-serviceable filter that it is pulling fuel through there. Only thing is, I haven't had this thing running for a couple months, so the battery is not happy, boys. So I'm probably gonna have to charge it overnight, and then we're pretty close. It's already got fuel in that filter, so it pretty much has fuel in the carbs, but the battery hasn't had a chance to run in a couple months or so probably. So I'm gonna put it on charge, and then we should be able to fire this thing in the morning. Okay, I've had it on the trickle charger for a little bit. I think we're probably about ready for it to fire. Let's see what happens. It sounds right. All right, so it's the next day. I think there may be an issue with the reeds or something, because it is acting the exact same way. And I also notice it backfires. When it backfires, this collapses, like it's pulling a suction. So it's almost like it's backfiring through, and one of the ways for that to occur would be if the reed pedals are not staying closed, it will try to force the exhaust out the intake. So I'm going to try to fire it up, see if I can't get it to fire, but something is still off. And I know the carbs have been gone through, the fuel system's been gone through. Only thing I haven't removed and thoroughly inspected could be the reed valves. So one way to check is you can take off the filters, and if it spits back fuel at your hand, then pretty much you can almost guarantee that the reed valves are sticking open or one's broken and it's shoving the fuel back through. So it's essentially leaking compression back this way. So I'm gonna check that out and I will report back once I have some answers. Okay, just to check my sanity here, I'm checking the compression. So this one looks like it's 130, 140, maybe closer to 140. Let's check the other cylinder. Yeah, the motor's super healthy. There's the other cylinder, and we're pretty much in the exact same spot, just about 140 there. So I don't know why this thing's unhappy. Either something's up with the carbs or there's some other mystery, but as always, I will continue digging and see if I can get to the bottom of this. So we've got compression. When I crank it, I don't have this many hands to hold the camera and start it, but I'm not getting any spit back on my hands, so the reeds should be okay. We've got spark, and I can illustrate that here. I don't know if maybe this spark should be stronger, but it looks decent. Actually, do we maybe not now have spark? I am seeing spark, although perhaps a little sporadic. Let's see, it's hard to get it to ground onto something because everything's painted. Let's see if maybe that's... I need to ground these appropriately and double check that because that does seem a little off. Alright, so cleaning up that connection there that goes into the mag cover there didn't seem to make a difference as far as spark. I have heard that there's 3 ground wires here and it looks kind of crusty. 1, 2, 3. 3 black grounds in here to clean those up and try that. So I'm going to try that since it's an easy attempt and then go from there. So let me see if that does anything before we start tearing into this thing. Okay, so I was about to go crazy ripping this whole thing apart. What I did do is, I saw this on recommendation of somebody else, is to remove the boots and cut off about 1/4 of an inch. And I did that and there was like nothing left in the end. Like it was almost like they were screwing into just rubber. So I cut off just a tiny little bit, but that's what I was seeing on this side. So, and you figure that the actual boot itself only has a tiny little probe on it. So I cut off that much, maybe a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And now I seem to be getting really good spark off both these spark plugs, not the inconsistent spark that I was getting before. So I'm wondering if it was just something really stupid like that, because now I'm getting good consistent spark out of both plugs. Let's throw these on and see if she fires up. Still something. It is weird though, it has something to do with the spark. 1 minute it's sparking fine, next minute you'll see if I hold this here, it is not sparking. Watch. I get good spark when it does spark, but it's almost maybe the pickup. I was really hoping I'd have to take off the mag cover, but watch. You'll see it spark and then you'll just see it kind of disappear here, so. See how when it fires for a second, you saw a spark for a minute and then it went away? That's the issue I'm having. So that's what's happening on this one, because I left this one connected. It's like it's hit or miss with the spark. So I think the cover is gonna have to come off and we will see about the pickup and see what's going on in there. Okay, so I just went for it. So took off the front motor mounts. I suspended the engine from here where this mount goes to the pipe. So I just kind of lifted it up a little bit and you're able to get full access to the front mag cover there. So I have all the bolts out. It's just a matter of wiggling this off now and getting it out of here. So I'm gonna remove this. And once I get out of here with 2 hands, we will see what it looks like under there. Okay, Okay, so it doesn't look overly terrible. A lot of people say that this has a lot of metal filings and stuff on it sometimes, which mine looks pretty clean. Looks a little dirty in here, but overall it's not terrible. Like the hardware's not rusty or anything. So let me get out a multimeter and see what I can or can't see. Alright, so I have the shop manual printed out here, and I just checked the trigger coil, so like the pickup coil. And you can do a continuity test, and it says, where is it here? It has to be between 190 and 300 ohms. So that checked out accordingly. And then it says if you put it to volts AC and you measure it with the engine turning over, it should be between 0.2 and 0.5 volts AC. So I did that. You won't be able to actually use a start button, but what I did was just jumped the starter solenoid and got it to crank over. And I'm reading over here, so I have it on 2 volts AC. It's reading half a volt, so that's working. Next thing I'm going to move on to is checking the stator. So I just figured the instructions for that. So there's a bunch of yellow wires that come out of the stator, and you're supposed to check, and it's supposed to be, let me tell you right here, I have it screenshot on my phone. It's supposed to be right here between 0.1 to 1 ohm between any of the yellow wires. So as long as it's within that resistance, we're going to check that. Also, you have to check to ground. So from any of the yellow wires to ground, make sure there's no continuity, because otherwise it's shorted out. So we're going to do that test again, 0.1 to 1 ohm between any of the yellow wires, and then between any of the yellow wires there shouldn't be continuity to ground on the stator somewhere. So I'm going to yank that cover back off, and we're going to run this test. Okay, so far it seems to be passing the test for the stator. If you guys are wondering which wires are the yellow wires, you flip it over on the back here and you kind of just pull this shielding up a little bit. You'll notice those 3 wires on the right side when you're looking at the plug from the top of the clip. So this bank right here, those 3 are all yellow. So everything seems to be stabilizing around 0.8, 0.9 ohms on mine. I do have another machine here that's, if needs be, I can compare it to, but I'm just hoping I'd be able to find something that's bulletproof as far as giving us an indication here. Let's try the grounding test. Okay, so hopefully you guys can hear that beeping. That is my multimeter when it detects continuity. So touching some different areas. I don't hear anything on that pin. Let's move it over to the next one. Okay, so we're good on the continuity. Only thing I can think of is there's still a little bit of green haze on that one pin, but nothing excessive, but I have a tiny little bit on that one pin. Okay, so I just popped out this orange retaining clip out of here, and even though I sprayed this out with contact cleaner, that one pin, I don't know if that's responsible for ignition. There's a few coil wires that are coming out of here, but that one definitely has some crud in it. It does produce continuity when I stick a paper clip in there and just stab the wire, but you never know. I'm gonna try to clean that out a little bit better and see if it does anything for us. So you can see that green there, that's how things are looking when I just slid it out of the connector. So I'm gonna clean these up a little bit. Like I said, not sure if this is gonna do anything, but sure can't hurt. Okay, so after cleaning those connections, I just made sure I had continuity from the inside wires to the outside wires, so all that seems to be good with the meter. We are on to the next goose chase, boys. So I'm gonna go ahead, I guess, reinstall this and see if cleaning or touching any of this stuff seemed to make any difference. If it didn't, then I think we may or may not be on to our MPEM. One other thing I'm gonna do is right here, this ear tab on the end, that's where the ground wires go to, and it looks a little nasty, so I'm gonna clean this up before I throw this on. Wonder if maybe it could potentially just be a bad grounding to the case. You never know. Okay, there was a lot of junk on that ear before I finally started to get clean metal. I'm gonna do the same to this side. Watch how much crap is on there. Okay, so that definitely looks a lot better. Who knows whether that'll do anything, but it's definitely worth a shot. Okay, so after cleaning all that stuff and the contacts and the ground, I haven't changed any parts, but check out the spark now. Seems way more consistent. I don't want to jinx it, but let's look. You guys can't probably can't see from that angle, but I only got so many hands, boys. I only got so many hands. It's looking way more consistent. So hopefully you guys can see that. It's looking good. Now let's, I haven't put all the covers, bolts for the mag just because I'm testing stuff still and I haven't put the motor mount or anything in. But let's throw this on here and just see if it decides to start. I'm gonna put the rest of it together, but now all of a sudden it runs perfectly. So between the connection and the grounds, I think that's probably what it was, but you can see there now it runs perfectly and starts perfectly for whatever crazy reason. Okay, here we go. We can finally start it. I got the hose ready, so hopefully everything works and I can get it up to temperature, and hopefully that's the end of this crazy adventure with this thing. Okay guys, so happy to tell you guys that this thing is finally working good. All that nonsense, I think it was just a matter of cleaning up some grounds and cleaning up some connectors. Now she runs beautiful. So next thing is going to be to test it out in the water. So I'm gonna make that a separate video because that's probably gonna get pretty lengthy. I'm hoping I can go out there and actually enjoy it for some length of time, and I would like to enjoy it as much as possible and get a bunch of coverage for you guys there. So if you guys are interested in this content and the Seadoo stuff, check out the next video where I'll be out ripping it. Hopefully this thing is running perfectly. We've pretty much gone through this thing from front to back, up, down, every which way. So I'm hoping at this point we can go out and just enjoy the ride. I do need to get a coat of wax on it at this point, but right now I am just solely concerned with going out and having fun on it, and then I'll worry about making it a little prettier later. If I go out and this thing works perfectly, then I'm gonna go ahead and order the correct seat cover. This one's kind of hard. I do want to get the silver one on here that matches. We'll be doing that, and then I'll polish the thing once again and then get a good coat of wax on it so that she looks as good as new again. But thanks for watching, guys. Give this video a thumbs up. Check out the other videos on the channel if you guys are interested in this content. You guys can see where we started off on this thing, where we picked it up, and kind of the state that it was in when we got it, to now a running, working Seadoo, hopefully. And we'll see you guys in the next video.